General networking, network fundamentals. What do you mean I have to know Microsoft? Part 3. In this video we're going to talk about Microsoft servers, available editions, we'll introduce Active Directory, domain controllers, I will connect to a Windows server, we'll show you how to add a new role and a feature. It is all about the licenses, of course. We have Windows Server 2008, 2003, 2008, 2012. 2003, not a lot of servers running. Most companies have upgraded to 2008 in the last couple of years. New servers will give you Server 2012 as well. Let's take a look at some editions that are available. As an example, I took Windows Server 2012. As you can see on the screen, let's start with Essentials. This is something that was introduced by Microsoft to replace a small business server. Small business server SBS 2003 and 8. They were very popular because it was like an all-in-one solution. I'm pretty sure you will find a server like that in many small companies. The advantage was that you could run Exchange and all other features from one box, one license. It was much cheaper, much easier to deploy. There were some pre-configured wizards and tools that you could use. Great server. Unfortunately, Microsoft said no, that's not an option anymore, and people said, well, what do you mean? We need something, and that's how Essentials, this server, was created. I have a server like that running as my NAS server. It's really great, and it's a backup server as well. I'm really impressed by the backups that you can find in that. However, of course, a lot of features will be limited. As you can see on the screen, you can have 25 users, for instance, but there are no licenses for it, but 25 users only. You cannot use that as a virtualization host. Standard is just a standard server. That's what most companies go for. As you can see, it will include all features. And there is a version foundation, which is an entry-level server, really cheap. A lot of, for instance, HP servers will arrive with this edition included, and you can take advantage of that. It is up to 15 users and 1 CPU. Of course, a lot of features were removed by Microsoft to reduce the price. I really like this attitude because Microsoft, of course, they will remove a lot of features, but they will leave features that you really need for a small company. For instance, this Essentials, a great box for a small company as a file backup server, great box. Let's talk about roles and features. A server role is a set of programs that you put on your server if you want to get a new feature, a new function. For instance, if you look at the screenshot, you can see that there are 2 roles installed, and one of the roles is File Services. The second is Web Server, IIS. That's a role. A feature is something that is not as important, as sophisticated as a role. The easiest way, I'll just connect to a server and show you what's available. Let's go. No, that's not a good time. Do it later, please. Okay, we will have to go to server that is running Windows Server 2012. We go to Server Manager. It will show me roles and features, as you can see here. That should turn green in a moment, I hope. If you want to add a role, you click on Add Roles and Features wizard. You click Next. That's the only server here. Here is a list of roles. What can we add? For instance, Hyper-V. If you want this server to be a server for your virtual machines. If you want to have a DHCP server, that's a role as well. Features, for instance, BitLocker. That's a feature. If you want to protect your data and encrypt your hard drive, it's not really a role, isn't it? It's a feature. By the way, if you're interested, this error is just saying that I have to reboot my server. The last thing we have to talk about is Active Directory and domain controllers. It's really funny because I say it's the last thing. It might be, well, it is the most important thing, really. What is Active Directory? You will hear that everywhere. Oh, yeah, I want to authenticate against Active Directory. There is a domain controller. All these terms. Active Directory is a directory service that was created by Microsoft, and it allows you to, with a domain controller, it allows you to authenticate and authorize users. The protocol that Microsoft decided to use is LDAP, and they use Kerberos and of course some additional protocols like DNS, DHCP, and Radius, everything that allows Microsoft to give you all features that your end users need. A domain controller is just a server that is responsible for authenticating your users. It's a server, it's of course a Microsoft server, and it was introduced in Windows NT. What you have to do, you have to promote your server to this role. You have to promote the server to domain controller. When you have Active Directory domain services installed, then you can tell your server, okay, you are the domain controller for this environment. In Windows Server 2012, when you finish adding Active Directory domain services, you will see a window like that saying, oh, by the way, it makes sense to promote this server to be your domain controller. Do you want to do that? If you click yes, then it will do it for you. The most important option that you're going to use when everything is in place, you're going to use Active Directory users and computers. It is a snap-in that allows you to manage your users, permissions, computers. You can manage your domain, your OUs, organizational units. These, in a way, folders, but they are OUs. What you can do from here, for instance, you can reset a password. You can add a user to a group. For instance, let's say you have a user and he wants to connect with a VPN from home. He should be added to a special group on your server, and that's where you go if you want to do that. If a user forgets a password, you can reset that from here as well. Let's connect to the server again. We go to Tools, and here it is Active Directory users and computers. You can see your forest, your domains, computers that were added to this domain. What does it mean? Well, in a way, you're going to tell your PC, well, here is your manager. You are going to be managed by this environment by this domain controller, you will be a member of this Active Directory infrastructure that was created. As you can see, there are 3 PCs that are included in this domain. This is Windows Server 2012 Essentials, and this is different really, because these PCs are not really added to the domain. I have a small application running on these laptops, on these computers, and that's why they report themselves here in Active Directory users and computers. Users, let me show you how to reset a password. Let's go for admin. You right click, and from here you can reset your password. If you click, it will ask you for a new password. When you double click, you will see a lot of options here. It is beyond our discussion. What I want to show you is 2 things: accounts, and make sure that this account is not locked, because a user will not be allowed to log in. And the second thing is member of. If you want, going back to our example with VPN, you can add a user to a group here. Let's say remote, there should be a group like that. If you want this user to be a member of the remote desktop users group, you click OK, and this user will be added to that group. Adding a PC to the domain. If you want to add a PC to the domain, you have to remember that it is not going to be possible with Windows 7, 8 Home editions. You need a Pro version edition of Windows 7 and 8. That's the main requirement. When you go to System Properties, you will see that when you click on Change Settings, you will see that it is not possible for this PC to be a member of a domain, because it is running Windows 7 Home Premium. You need a professional version of Windows 7, Windows operating system. Here, domain, you put your domain, click OK, put a username and password, and this PC will be joined to the domain. In this video we talked about Microsoft operating systems. I showed you some additions in Windows Server 2012. We discussed Active Directory, domain controllers, and how to add a new PC to the domain.